Thanks for tuning in to this episode of I Have Something to Say, where subject matter experts are unafraid and unapologetic about sharing their perspectives regarding issues that impact our lives. They speak up because basically they give a shit. So if you're tired of canned answers and want to finally hear real people cut through the BS and talk about real issues, this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Zaid Haiman from Urbender, and behind our mixer is our producer, Chris Majoka from UdoU. Hi, everyone. I have a special guest today, and it's my brother, Zaid Haiman. Hola, Zaid. ¿Cómo estás?
Bien, ¿y tú? Nice to
Good.
see you.
Nice to see you, too. We're in the same state and we get to see each other occasionally, although it's been a hot minute because of COVID. But anyway, I can't believe that we have over 100 episodes, and this is the first time that I have you think about that, right? That I have you on. But I just thought that we had such an interesting conversation. I want to say it was like maybe what, 8 weeks ago, if that
Yeah.
much, right? And I'm like, you know what? This is so interesting that I would like to have this conversation with you documented, because I think it could be beneficial for many people, right? That sometimes it's so hard to deal with a change in family dynamics or relationships and the different textures that they may take, right, with time, and it's not that they're any better or any worse, it's just that they're different. And so sometimes we fall into reacting, right, to a change in a family dynamic or in a relationship or in circumstances, in a way that we're accustomed to saying, oh wow, or reacting, right, in a surprised way or in a negative way even, right, when it doesn't have to be like that. And so nothing, I just wanted to first thank you for coming to talk about this topic, which is basically navigating the end of marriage drama free. And so, just to give a little bit of context, about 8 weeks ago, you called me and you're like, hey, ¿cómo está? We were having small talk. And then all of a sudden you say, hey, I got to tell you something. By the way, this entire conversation was in Spanish because, we feel, right, more comfortable.
Comfortable, yeah.
Yeah, in Spanish. But in essence, you were like, hey, I have to something to tell you. And I said, okay, what's going on? And so basically, you shared with me that you and my dear sister and because she's family, Cristina, right, your wife, and you were deciding to separate. And my automatic reaction again was like, I know. And you
Right.
stopped me dead in my tracks, because that's what we do. That's what the Haymans do, right? We stop each other dead in our tracks. And you're like, why are you reacting that way? And I'm like, oh, wow, I'm sorry. I think that's how you're supposed to react,
Right.
right? When someone shares this. But you were right. And then I said, instead of saying, ay, bendito, I says, oh, what's going on, right? And then you were able to, we had this very candid conversation, right? And I said, you know what? This is so great that the love is there that you and Cristina have, right? And David, my nephew, and that it's intact, right? In that respect, And then we got into this conversation about relationships and how you explained it to David, to
Right.
your son, who's 12 years old, right? He's going to be 13 now this year, and all of that. I'm like, coño, I need to have you on so you can share this, right? Because it doesn't always have to be like an earthquake or drama
Right.
and hateful and hurtful and all of that stuff. And so nada, thank you for having that conversation now here on the show. And so tell me, how did this conversation internally start, and when and why was it that it took, like it was a process, right? And
Right.
how was the entire process, and that decision to finally call, your loved ones, and I'm on that list, right, to share, right, what had transpired.
All right. Well, so um, we had been together for 20 something years, right? First as just going out and married for over 20 years. And as I assume, as I know, a lot of relationships, we had gone through ups and downs, and over time, things evolved and they changed. And about a year and a half ago, just right before the whole COVID pandemic started, we realized that there was something that was not there. Um, and I was asked directly, okay, so what's going on? And instead of just doing what, you would normally do, oh, nothing, it's just, you know, just, I don't know, I'm worried about work or I'm worried about something else. I said, you know what, I'm gonna have to get back to you, right? And think about this. And I gave myself some time to think about it. And I realized that even though, as you said earlier, the love for this person was there in terms of she's the mother of my kid and she's a friend, from a husband and wife dynamic, there was something missing. So and you said drama free. Internally, those conversations are difficult, right? And
Hmm.
I didn't want to get the impression that those conversations were not difficult at the beginning. They're very difficult, right? Because it's tough to admit certain things to yourself, let alone admit them to the person you've been with for so many years. But having seen other couples, including people that you and I both know,
Oh yeah, a lot of
go,
drama.
go going through a similar situation and trying to make it work and trying to stay together for the sake of the kids or whatever excuses people want to give themselves for not admitting certain truths. I i i gave myself a chance to dig deep and really try to articulate um what I was feeling, right, without bringing up stuff from the past, and why things were different, um, and not give in to the temptation of saying, okay, well, let's give it a chance, because I knew deep down that certain things weren't going to change, right?
Mm.
So again, those initial conversations were difficult. Eventually, we both found, an understanding of okay, when we first got together, we agreed that if at any point, one of us didn't feel the same, we would tell the other person, right? And
Right.
I think that initial agreement we had back then, m- reminding ourselves of, hey, listen, we're just doing what we agreed that we were going to do, back then in a mature way, uh, helped to then have the conversation of, okay, well, this is happening. How can we do it so it's as least disruptive as possible to our son, right? Which was the
Mm-hmm.
main concern. So
Right.
initially, those were difficult conversations, and I don't want to pretend that they weren't. But over time, and I guess the pandemic and having to stay in the same house for so long was actually a
Together.
blessing in disguise,
Yeah.
because it allowed us to have those conversations. But something that was very important for me, and she was able to do the same thing too, is that during those conversations, whenever I tried real hard not to bring up stuff from the past. Oh, well, you could have done this, you could have done that. No, I just focused on communicating how I felt, right,
Mm-hmm.
and how I thought we could move forward, right, and
Mm-hmm.
and she did the same thing, right. Obviously, every once in a while things flare up and like, oh, but we could have done this, and I we both tried to reel it back into, okay, yeah, let's forget about what happened before. What are we
Right.
going to do about this now, right? So
Right.
we were able to agree that, um, I moved out to a place that I'm literally 2 minutes away, right? We're
Yeah.
doing the whole co-parenting thing. I take him to school, I pick him up, whenever I can, or she needs me to. She does the same thing. He stays, sometimes over with her, sometimes with me, and it's working well, right?
Yeah.
A very important part was that we were never people, and I know you've seen this. You
Mm-hmm.
never saw us argue,
Never.
but we behind closed doors, we never really argued
Mhm.
that much, and
Right.
we never yelled at each other, we never screamed at each other.
Mhm.
If we have disagreements, we hash them out. David
Mhm.
never saw us, has never seen us really having a big fight, right?
Right.
So it was important for me to be able to move forward before we got to that point,
Right.
right? I didn't want to get to that point where we resented each other, because then I've seen that too, and it's ugly, right?
Very ugly.
So
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
think that fortunately we were able to sort things out before that, so that when we had the conversation with David, right? And I think this was key, right?
Mhm.
This was about a few days before I called you. We decided, okay, we need to talk to him, right? We have already picked out this place where I'm at right now, and I wanted to make sure that he felt at ease that this was not going to be a disruptive thing to him, right?
Right.
And we both had concerns. Okay, how is he's going to react, right?
Right.
Well, we tell him what's going on, that we're going to be separating, right?
Mhm.
And it was very important for us to keep our composure as we're having the conversation, because kids will react based on how you're delivering the news, and how you're
Yeah.
reacting. So
Right.
when we sat down with him, and we told him, hey, listen, this is going on. You've seen the place that we are trying to buy. What's actually happening is that I told him I'm gonna be moving out, right?
Mhm.
We're gonna keep this house where he is right now, and I'm gonna be moving out because we are separating as a husband and wife. His initial reaction was like, "Oh, okay," and to me, that reaction was possible because he didn't see us fight,
Right.
right? He's like, okay, and because of during the pandemic, something that I didn't mention before, she got COVID at one point,
Mhm.
right? And I had to move to another room,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
And for a couple of weeks at least, and he was like, oh yeah, I didn't see that I extended that a little bit, right? And at some point,
Yeah.
I was in the other room for months. And it was like, no, I
Yeah.
just thought you got used to it, right? But
Mhm.
we were living in the same house, right? He never saw us fight during that whole
Mhm.
time for almost a year before I was
Mhm.
able to move out. Um,
Right.
and when we were having the conversation, I told him, listen, we're still gonna do things as a family, right? We're still gonna go visit our friends as a family.
Mhm.
I'm still gonna be around. I'm still gonna help you with homework and do all these things. And I'm confident that because he didn't see us fighting, he he could see it. He could visualize it. He could say,
Right.
oh,
It
yeah,
wasn't the
yeah,
end of the world because he
right,
never saw you guys at each other's throats.
right. Had he
Right.
seen that, me trying to convince him that we're gonna do this as a family afterwards, he's gonna be like, "Get the hell out of here! You're
Yeah,
crazy,
exactly. Yeah,
right?"
exactly. Are you trying to kid?
That's
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's not gonna
And I
happen,
yeah, totally. And I loved what you explained to me when you explained to me about how you explained to him that the love that
right?
you have, right, for Cristina
Right,
is still strong, right? It's just
right,
different, right? It's just
right.
different. And when you explained about the baby when he was a
Yeah,
baby, you gotta. I thought that was
that's it.
brilliant because
Right,
that really, I think it makes it more tangible, right? More
right,
relatable. I think more
right,
relatable for him as a kid, because
right,
sometimes we're like, how do you explain to children, right? How a relationship may morph or
right.
change, right, with time, but yeah, so share how you explained it to him about when he was a baby with los
Right.
besitos and stuff. Yeah.
So yeah, so I saw that the wheels were turning, and I'm like, hey, do you want me to explain how we still love each other as friends and as your parents, but as a husband and wife, we're gonna kind of separate and have our own space. Initially, he was like, no, but eventually he agreed to have me explain it. I said, listen, so remember when you maybe you don't when you were a little kid, both when you're very little, both your mom and I would give you little taps on the lips, right? Like little kisses, like you do with little babies.
Hmm.
And so as you grew older, by the time you're already 4 or 5, I wouldn't do it anymore, but your mom still did. There's pictures of a birthday. He's like, okay. He's like, but neither one of us does that anymore. And he went like, yeah. And like, yeah, that feels doesn't feel it doesn't feel natural, right?
Hmm.
And I said, and until maybe last year, you would still crawl into bed with us or with me, and you would say, "Oh, Dad, can you sleep in my bed?" or vice
Hmm.
versa. It's like, but you haven't done that in a while because now you're older. You're 12 years old. You're almost a teenager, and it doesn't feel the same. He's like, yeah. He's like, and imagine when you're 18 and you're in college. If I go to visit you, I'm gonna say, "Hey, David, scoot over." He immediately said like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah." So I don't love you. I don't love you any less, right?
Hmm.
If anything, I love you even more. The way that we share certain things, right, has changed over time. And I
Hmm.
told them that's something similar to what happens between a husband and a wife. Sometimes, after, you know, certain amount of time or years, the way that they love each other changes, and they choose not to live in the same house anymore. And he's like, "Oh, okay, I get it." And I think
Right.
again, that's as you said, it was a very um, I guess
Simple
magical
way.
way from yeah, simple
Yeah.
way for him to understand. Okay, I see it happens with me and both of you, not just me.
Right. Exactly. Hmm.
So I see how it can happen with between the two of you. And again, but
And
I think
yeah.
the important thing is we never got to a point where we were yelling at each other or arguing. We were to sort things out way before we reached that point,
Yeah.
and gave him that somewhat sort of confidence that yeah, we'll continue to to work together. That's right. It's funny. Christina and I actually presented a joint proposal for a project that popped up on her radar. So if they accept, we're actually going to be
Working
working together.
together.
Yeah. So it's for anybody thinking that oh yeah, it's not
Yeah. No.
he's
No.
blowing
But
smoke up.
yeah, totally. And the thing is, it also manifested itself when it counts the most too, because I know that just recently Christina's grandmother passed away, right?
Mm, yeah.
And you traveled as a family to Puerto
Right.
Rico, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because you know what I'm saying? And so that's
Yeah.
again proof that the love is there, that that it's family at this point,
But
And so
well,
to me honestly, it was such a relief because I'm like, "Coño, now what?" And he says, "No, it's like it's
so
okay, the world is not ending. We're still together, we're still family, you know,
I was
and
thinking
most
about that.
importantly, David, huh?
That finish your thought because I was
and
thinking about
and
that too.
David is clear, right, about that, and
Yeah.
feels confident about the love and the support he's receiving. So to him, technically, the only thing that has changed is that both parents are in sleeping in the same space, right?
Right.
Because he sees you every day. He sees Christina.
Mhm.
I mean, so really, that's the major difference, right?
Right. So about that you just said, I was thinking the other day, actually on my way back from Puerto Rico, that marriage vows are very comprehensive. It's a comprehensive list of things, right?
Yeah,
In sickness
yeah.
and in health, for better, for worse, in good times and in bad, and you could still do most
And
of that
until death do you apart.
until death
Until
do your part, right? But you
yeah,
could still you could still do most of that. You could still be there in sickness and in health and good times and in bad and help each other out. Just because
right,
certain elements though of that entire list you're no longer able or willing or capable of doing doesn't mean that you have to throw the entire list out the window. You could still
right,
do certain
right.
things on that list as a
Yeah.
family and
Hmm.
and honor a lot of that commitment that you originally made. And that I don't know, that's just something that I was thinking
No,
about.
I totally love that. But then also, and this made me laugh too, when you talked about when those vows were written, about the life expectancy. I almost
Oh
died.
yeah,
When you say-
yeah.
so, so what was your theory?
My,
About that,
uh,
or your pondering
so
on that.
right. So, and I've been thinking about this for a while too. So, when marriage was invented, 2,000 years ago. I don't know how long ago. Um, and you said, okay, I'm with this person until death do us part. Life expectancy was maybe 30, 35. So that wasn't a that wasn't a long time. Maybe you married in your teens. So you're talking about 20 years. Now that is a much longer time. If you fulfill your life expectancy of, 70 something, 80 years, that's a 50-year commitment that
Right.
you're making, most of us in our 20s.
Yeah.
Um, and I think the numbers kind of prove my point. It's tough. It's to ask people and so young to make that type of ironclad commitment.
Right.
And some people are able to do it and live their entire lives and they're super happy. I just think that with the times, things change and we have to allow for different types of arrangements and setups and family structures. I mean, even the Catholic Church recently has kind of recognized, you know, same-sex marriages as something that, but that was unheard of even
Yeah, totally.
15 years ago, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
would never think that so I think that as we evolve, so should our understanding and our acceptance of how people decide and choose to create their own families.
Yes, absolutely. And the thing is that these different family structures do exist. I mean, they have.
Mhm.
But it's how you again navigate, right? These relationships in a way that's as the least disruptive as possible, right?
Right.
Especially for the kids, really, because they were brought into, these families. And so it's important to be, how do you say, mindful of that.
Yeah.
Be mindful of that. Yeah, for their benefit, right? So it doesn't
Hmm.
perpetuate like these cycles of, you know, unhealthy ways of coexisting and of
Hmm.
treating each other and unkind, ways of referring to each other
Yeah.
and all of that nasty stuff. Yeah, I got to tell you, you and Christina and my friend Anna and her ex Marvin are the only two couples that I know, and I'm already 51, right? That I've ever met, that are doing the co-parenting and really demonstrating, right, that it is possible. I'm sure there's other families out there,
Yeah.
but I haven't I don't know them, right? I know only two couples, right? And so I think it's something really to admire. I'm glad you stopped me in my tracks, and told me, "Espérate, espérate, stop." What if,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, mira, you're not the only one.
No, I bet.
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
so actually, so how has I like what kind of feedback or I mean, I'm sure you have no qualms about stopping people dead in their tracks, right? But how has it? I mean, how has that been, right? How has the how do you say reaction been amongst your friends? Because you guys have a lot of friends too, like a lot. You have a big network of and not just acquaintances, like really solid friends. I mean,
Yeah,
where we used to travel years ago, right?
yeah,
Remember the cruise trips and
yeah.
stuff like that? It's like 50 people. It was freaking awesome, right? And that's like just a small group. And so what's the reaction been? And I know that you've been together at different gatherings and stuff like that
Right.
also since. So how's that been?
So, I mean, I don't want to say all over the place, but it's been mixed. Yeah, a lot of people have reacted like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and I have to tell them, "Don't be sorry. We're good. This is what's going on." They're like, "Really?" A lot of people are skeptical,
Mhm.
that we're making it work. We have been actually we were at a gathering. What was it on Sunday? With some friends, and I can see that some people are like little walking on eggshells around us
Yeah.
because we used to joke about anything and everything, and sometimes they I think they feel a little bit apprehensive of making certain jokes
Mm.
in front of us. Um, but those that take the time to sit down and ask questions
Yeah.
typically end up saying, "Oh well, if that's the case, I'm happy for you. I'm glad you guys were able to work it out, and more importantly happy for David." You know,
Yeah.
like most of the people are like, "Okay, so is David okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, he's fine with everything." And they're, okay, that's what's important, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, you saw him. He's fine.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, and I'm happy too. Once we had that conversation, after half an hour, it was like, okay, cool, perfect, So yeah, I'm really happy that you guys are that you worked it out this way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because I love you, obviously, right? Although when we were growing up, sometimes I wanted to strangle your neck, right? You're my baby brother. That's what older sisters are supposed to do. Right. But, I also love Cristina a lot.
Mm-hmm.
She's a really special person, a good person,
Mm-hmm.
So I love her a lot. And so, I mean, in so many years, she's like my kid sister,
Right.
So I'm just happy. I'm just happy, so happy that, you were able to figure this out,
Thank you.
and do it so graciously, and with so much thought and reflection and honesty, right, and authenticity, and just listening too, right. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the hardest part, is just tapping into what you're really feeling, right, and
As I said,
articulating it. That's because that it's not what you're feeling because you're processing, but it's like, boy, that must have been so
again, the toughest part is admitting it to yourself,
hard. Yeah.
right? Articulating to yourself what's going on, and then articulating it to whoever you're working with in a way that is not mean, hurtful, as least as possible,
Offensive.
right? Offensive. You're not putting blame or pointing fingers. You're just stating this is where I'm at. This is what I'm
Hmm.
feeling, and this is where I think we should go,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. No, no, totally, totally. And so then I think this will be helpful for a lot of people, right? Because this also applies to so many other
Yeah.
things too, obviously, right? Like in business, like with a
Hmm.
business associate, or when you're working with family, when you're having business and that involves family too. Sometimes you have to have like these icky sticky conversations,
Hmm.
right? And really express your feelings,
Right.
and really have like these candid conversations, just to get out of a rut, or to move forward, or to even, like you said, separate, right?
Right.
Separate because the interests are in common anymore, right?
Right.
Too, and so I think this is useful in so many other
Hmm.
realms too. That doesn't have to be necessarily, between people that are in a
Right.
relationship. And I was going to say in a committed relationship, but I removed the word committed because you're still committed. You're
Hmm.
still committed to the relationship of raising David, right, and being
Right.
present, and even being supportive of each other, right,
Right.
in those other list of the vows, in the good and the bad, and the right, and the
Hmm.
sad and the happy, and all of that too. So thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
having me.
you for sharing that. No, totally, totally. And have to come down to Miami and check
Yeah.
out your new place.
My new place. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. I love you, Saeed.
Love you too.
This concludes this episode of I Have Something to Say. We want to thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to tell your friends about us. We're on Spotify and iTunes as well. There's more to come next week. And remember, if you have something to say, it's time to speak up.